Yo, it's Rick, and we need to talk about a movie that just made $264 million in one weekend while historians were simultaneously losing their entire minds over it. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey opened to $124.5 million domestic. That's his biggest debut since Dark Knight Rises. Globally, $264 million, the man's best international launch, period, full stop. Second weekend just landed to $84 million, which is an all-time Nolan record for weekend 2, beating Dark Knight itself. So by every metric Hollywood actually cares about, this thing is a machine. A 3-hour R-rated adaptation of a poem people were forced to read in 10th grade just outgrossed franchise blockbusters with built-in fan bases. That should be the whole story. It is not the whole story, because while ticket buyers were showing up in droves, a whole different crowd, classicists, translators, actual Homer scholars, started tearing this movie apart in print. And the person leading that charge, the exact woman whose translation Nolan built the entire script on. Yeah, let that sink in. Her name's Emily Wilson, classics professor at Penn, first woman to publish a widely read English translation of the Odyssey back in 2017. Nolan picked her version out of dozens of available translations to build his script on. You'd think she'd be thrilled. Free global marketing for her book, right? Her translation actually cracked Amazon's top 5 bestsellers because of this movie. Instead, she went on record with the Associated Press and basically said Nolan missed the point of the poem he paid her to help him adapt. No Zeus, no Poseidon, two of the most important gods in the actual story just gone. Penelope, the whole clever queen holding the kingdom together character, reduced to something Wilson called dangerously thin, and there's a whole subplot with Odysseus's dog Argos that she flat out called pandering. Because nothing sells tickets like a sad dog, apparently, and that's just scholar number 1. We've got a New York Review of Books writer calling this thing Batman cosplay with a sword. We've got historians roasting the armor design. We've got actual maritime experts mad about the ships. Stick around, this gets messier. So let's talk about Daniel Mendelsohn, because this guy did not hold back. He's a classicist and translator himself, wrote a whole piece for the New York Review of Books, and his basic argument is this: Nolan didn't adapt the Odyssey. He remade the Odyssey in his own image. Like he took Homer's most famous trickster and just swapped in a Nolan protagonist. And look, that sounds like a nitpick until you remember what actually made Odysseus Odysseus. This is a guy whose entire legend is built on being clever. He doesn't win fights, he outthinks people. The most famous scene in the whole poem, the Cyclops, Odysseus doesn't just stab the guy and run, he tricks him, tells him his name is Nobody, gets him drunk, blinds him, then talks his way out of the cave while the other Cyclopes are standing right outside asking who hurt him. It's wordplay. It's a con. It's the entire point of the character. Mendelsohn says none of that survives in Nolan's version. He described it as basically a guy stabbing a giant and sprinting away. His words were something like watching a football play, not watching a legendary trick. No cunning, no charm, no jokes, just a haunted dude walking around feeling guilty the whole runtime. And here's the line that actually stuck with people. Mendelsohn compared this version of Odysseus to Nolan's other guys. Batman, Oppenheimer, basically haunted men, tortured by their past, brooding through 2.5 hours of runtime, which, okay, that's a Nolan trademark at this point. We all know it. But The Odyssey isn't supposed to be a brooding guy movie. It's supposed to be a survival by wit story. Then there's Gareth Hinds, writer, illustrated his own version of The Odyssey, and he basically backs up Mendelsohn's whole point. Says the smooth-talking liar who cons his way across the Mediterranean got replaced with a guy who's honest except for the 1 or 2 moments the plot needs him to lie, and then those lies just come back to bite him. Which, again, while that's not the character, that's a different guy wearing the character's name. And Hinds raises the real question underneath all of this. How much can you change a legendary character before it just isn't that character anymore? At what point are you not adapting the Odyssey, Bob? You're making an original war epic and slapping Homer's name on the poster because it sells more tickets. That's the fight right now, not is the movie good. Even the critics mostly agree Nolan can direct the hell out of a battle scene. The fight is whether this is actually the Odyssey or whether it's Christopher Nolan fan fiction with a 2,700-year-old marketing budget behind it. And we haven't even gotten to the costumes yet, or the ships, or the fact that historians are out here comparing a Greek king's armor to Batman's suit. That's next. All right, let's get into the stuff that made actual historians go feral. Starting with the armor. The King Agamemnon shows up in this movie in solid black armor, and costume historians immediately clocked it. It looks almost exactly like Batman's suit. Like, unmistakably. Nolan actually addressed this directly, said bronze could theoretically be blackened using sulfur back in that era, which, fine, technically true. But historians pushed back hard. They said even with that explanation, the finished look reads like modern cosplay armor or straight up special forces gear, not anything a Bronze Age king would have worn. There's actual surviving armor from that period, the Dendra panoply, real museum piece, and it's these heavy, bulky bronze plates, not sleek, not stealthy, not anything close to what's on screen. And on top of that, real bronze doesn't stay black. It goes green with age, oxidizes into this patina. Blackened metal as a status symbol is much more of a Renaissance era thing. So historians are saying Nolan basically imported an aesthetic from a completely different century and called it ancient Greece. Then the ships. Nolan's Greek fleet, these are supposed to be pentaconters, narrow-oared warships. But on screen, they've got these tall, dramatic prows that look straight out of a Viking movie. Maritime historians pointed out that real Bronze Age Greek ships were narrow, low to the water, built with rams on the front, nothing like the towering dragon boat look audiences are getting. So somewhere in pre-production, ancient Greece quietly turned into Scandinavia. And then there's the gods. This is the one academics keep circling back to. In actual Homer, Athena is real. She's not a metaphor, not a hallucination. She physically shows up and intervenes in the plot. Nolan's version leans hard into ambiguity. His Athena reads more like a psychological projection of Odysseus, maybe even just a flesh and blood woman he's imagining. Add that to cutting Zeus and Poseidon almost entirely, and scholars are saying the movie quietly strips out the actual religious worldview of the poem, where the gods aren't symbolism, they're just as real and objective as the rocks and the ocean. Last thing, the ending, and yeah, minor spoiler territory here. In Homer, Odysseus locks away the weapons, corners the suitors unarmed, and it's a cold, brutal, one-sided execution. Genuinely one of the most iconic scenes in Western literature, inspired centuries of paintings and poems off that exact moment. Nolan changes it. He gives the suitors weapons back, turns it into a fair, standard action movie sword fight. Also tacks on a whole epilogue that isn't in the poem at all. Odysseus going on some kind of pilgrimage to honor his dead men. So here's where it lands. A movie that's making historic money, directed by a guy who clearly can shoot the hell out of an action scene, being picked apart line by line by the exact community whose source material he built it on. Doesn't look like it's slowing the box office down even a little, but the receipts are the receipts either way. This is Rick, and that's the mess. Let me know down below whose side you're on.